It's a trap!
Oh, I'm sorry. Did I break your concentration?
This is the Team of Rivals podcast.
Everything you want to hear from the big sports to the big screen.
He's all by himself, fires into the end zone. Caught! Touchdown! No! Vaughn into the windup in his first offering. Just a bit outside. He tried the corner and missed.
He doesn't like you. I don't like you either.
Time winding down. Michael for three. Yes! She is gone!
I can't believe what I just saw!
Go crazy, folks! Go crazy!
You believe in miracles? Yes!
You may fire when ready.
What?
It's Thursday, September 24th, and this is the Team of Rivals podcast. Thanks for joining us. It's the last week of the baseball season. The Cubs are apparently backing into the NL Central Division crown. The Cardinals are barely hanging on for dear life to make it into the playoffs, and Elliott's off helping a friend. So tonight, we're going old school. It's just me and Ron. Buddy, how you doing, man? Our long national nightmare is almost over.
That helps. That helps right there. Yeah, you know, this has been the last. Of course, we're just coming off a series loss to the Kansas City Royals, a team that when you're surrounded by a couple that are chasing you and you're behind or dead even with a couple others, and an up and coming Cincinnati team all of a sudden to drop a series against a team like Kansas City is just something that you can't do as you get into the last week of the season. It's just crazy, and then to get your ass just stomped. What was it, 12-3 last night? That game was over quick. They were. I mean, look, I know I get on the offense's ass a lot, but when you put your team in a whole 6-0 in the early innings, that's it does have an effect on the offense. You got guys trying to do too much at that point, and it throws everything off. But I guess we got a lot of that stuff to cover, and I know you're not feeling much better about the latest series you guys just wrapped up.
Yeah, which offense trying too hard and doing nothing? Were you talking about, the Cardinals or the Cubs? Because I'd be stunned to see the splits over the last 2 weeks. Which one has been more futile? I'm sure that depending on which group of fans you asked, you would get a different response. Because I think Cubs fans are pretty close to slitting their wrists right now.
Ah, you went dark on that one, really. I'll say his dad's watching. Hey, Dad. Going on? I didn't think you would be up this late. Pete, you've been hearing me for it's been an ongoing thing. We're just a few months away from finishing our fourth year doing this, and it's gotten progressively worse, I think, every year. My bitching about the position players and the construction of the entire, roster at that point. The only thing they've done well, and I've given them a lot of credit for, and that is to make sure they've got plenty of arm stock to overcome. Look at who we're missing at this point in the year. We're missing Miles Michaelis. We haven't had him at all. Carlos, we really haven't had him either. He's kind of been in and out, but now he's out, and I don't know if he'll ever throw another pitch in a Cardinals uniform again. Jordan Hicks out. A lot of teams couldn't weather that type of storm. They can because of their depth, but beyond that, man, I don't know what they're going to look like in 2 years. I truly don't.
If you had told me at the beginning of the year, right, and obviously the whole pandemic thing changes everything, but if you had told me at the beginning of the year that the Cardinals were going to have to go through the season without Jordan Hicks, Dakota Hudson, Alex Reyes, and Carlos Martinez, I'd have been like, well, they're finishing last in the division then.
Oh, shit.
There's no way they're doing anything. What, Adam Wainwright's going to be your ace? Come on.
He has, though. That guy has.
He absolutely has. But, this season has gone anything but to plan. And it's been a wild season. You know what that means? This will actually be the year that the Dodgers finally win the World Series because nobody will take it seriously.
Yeah. Yeah, you're right. You know what, though? I mean, there's a part of me that goes, you see a team. I mean, I felt the same way. If we can go back in time, and I know half the people watching here, CJ, you might not even have been alive at the event I'm going to talk about. But, I always had a soft spot, I felt bad for the Buffalo Bills making it, 3 straight appearances, 4, something like that, to the Super Bowl.
4.
And 4. Fuck, that's right. It was 4. And coming up short every time. And I got to tell you, a little bit of me kind of feels for the Dodgers in that way. They've had such a good, regular season team. They've made it 3 times or twice at least that I can remember recently. They just can't seem to get past that. Whatever American League team rolls into the World Series that's kind of hot, they end up taking them down. So, yeah, if it's going to be this year, just let it be this year. But how would that feel as a member of that team going on this ride they've been on since 2012, right? They've won that division, I don't know how many years in a row, but imagine being there for the ride, like a Clayton Kershaw and all those great teams you've played for, and finally 2020 arrives and everything's screwed up, and you finally win one in 2020. Is that? I mean, I guess you've got one, so you can call it that, but who knows how we're going to look back on the 2020 season and ultimately the World Series champion. Is anybody going to care at that point?
Well, baseball is trying to lend, I think, a little bit more credibility. They announced this year that the records of this year's finishes will contribute to the draft order next year. And there had, from what I understand, there had initially been talk that that the 2019 finishes wouldn't necessarily determine the draft order, but might be weighed in as part of it. So it would seem that the central office is trying to give some legitimacy to this year by doing that. But
CJ was a baby, by the way, when the Bills went on that playoff run. He just informed me.
So he was alive.
He was alive. I'm sorry, CJ. You looked a little bit younger to me. You got some city miles on you though. But yeah. So he was around. He has no memory of it. No, it's
city
like
miles, but those are rough miles when you're being chased by zombies.
When you're being pursued every night, fearing for your life, CJ. I know that's aged you a little bit, man. I'll have my wife bring that stuff in, and I can show you what it is. She put it on my eyes tonight. If I look, at least the bags under my eyes make me look 4 years younger, but the rest of my face and body are certainly showing their wear and tear.
Ron, that actually provides us a great opportunity to plug our social media. You can check any of our accounts, whether it's Facebook, just look for the Team of Rivals podcast. You can go to Team of Rivals Pod on Twitter, or you can look for a Team of Rivals podcast on Instagram, and any of them will have a picture of Ron's pre-show makeup being applied before we got on the show. So if you want to see Ron in all his full glory and see what he really looks like, without the blue glow and with the bags, be sure to hit up our social media tonight.
All right, you did it.
For turning the camera on, buddy.
That's not terrible. All right.
No, it wasn't.
Okay, so before we get too much into baseball, just this week on a personal level, right? We're certainly gonna talk baseball. Hey, Kim Smith, how you doing? Where's that? We haven't heard from Sam for a while either, right? I mean, maybe he's been watching, he just hasn't been commenting too much, or maybe we haven't been paying attention, Pete. I don't know who's worse, me or you.
Well, who was going to comment last week? Last week we went deep into pop culture, man. We didn't even talk about Alec Mills' no-hitter because we were talking about the Grail.
You're right. We didn't even touch it. And he got lit up. What game was it today? Or is it yesterday?
Alec Mills? No.
Okay, I must have the wrong guy.
Oh, wait, no. Was he on the mound today? Oh, maybe he did get lit up. I don't know. That shows you how much I was paying attention today. So like we were talking about before, man, I got work to do. I got to sit in Zoom meetings.
So this week for me has been one of the tougher ones. That's why I look so freaking tired. And I tell you, when I turned the camera on, when I saw you had logged on to the rendezvous, I did. I looked at me from kind of a profile on my second monitor. I'm like, Jesus, you look like shit. Like, how are you going to do this? And but this week has been just a a marathon at work on calls where a lot of people are attending, and you've got to be prepped and prepared. You're presenting certain things, and all 3 kids have been home this week, and so we've got to like tag team to, all right, so and so's got a Zoom call. This guy's, and it's just like, Jesus, you can't focus on anything. But just when you start to get a little momentum, getting something done, you hear your name. By name, I mean Dad, and it's just like I am so exhausted this week. We couldn't have our nanny couldn't be here for the boys. We've had a little bit of a COVID caution. One of the kids from their school, there was somebody that they were in close contact with that had tested positive. So now we all have to be here and just be safe. One of my kids got tested. We'll find out by Saturday, but none of them have any symptoms or anything. So they either won't. But I tell you, if one brought it in, we've all got it. And so
at this point,
and at that age, there's no way. What are you going to tell a 4-year-old to stay in her room and don't come out here? We'll shove your dinner under the door. I mean, it's just not doable. But anyway, so this has been a rough week. But other than that, you look at things like baseball to give you a little bit of an escape at night, and it hasn't been fun to watch. And another thing, hopefully I didn't mention this last week. I'm going to mention it today. That a tough thing to hear from my son, my 15-year-old. I was talking to him on FaceTime earlier in the week, and he said, Dad, he's like, he might call in a little while. He's like, Dad, he's like, they're just not fun to watch. He's like, I can barely make it through a game. And for that kid, as dedicated as he is, he'll simulate 18,000 seasons over a week period on just focusing on baseball. But the fact that he can't sit down and watch a game because they're so uninteresting right now, and just quite frankly, just really bad, that he can't enjoy watching it. And for him to say
I don't think the current environment helps, when we're already locked in our houses all the time. Baseball doesn't feel like a break the way that it did. You go to school, you spend all day in school, and then you're looking for something to take your mind off of that. So you go home and you turn on a baseball game for 3 hours. And even if it's not the best, still it's a baseball game, it's a break from the routine. But when you're stuck in your house all day long, last thing you want to do is sit down in front of the TV and watch boring baseball.
Especially this brand of baseball all around.
That's what I mean by boring.
Yeah. I mean, I had done some of the research just basically focused on the Cardinals and their outfield and how I was completely done with a couple of them. Like I've made my mind up on a few. The narrative for the Cardinals, if you don't mind, we can go in this direction real quick. Just we can kind of talk about our teams, about what has just kind of drove us nuts. And the narrative in the offseason as the Cardinals got ready to go was, hey, look, we're going to find out we're not going to make some big offseason acquisition. We're going to find out what we have in this young outfield. We've got like 4 or 5 of them, including Dex. We'll throw Dex in the mix too. Like, we got to find out who we have in some of these young guys. We can't keep them down in AAA. We can't, now's the time. We let Ozuna walk, which looks great now, doesn't it? But we want to see, with a sustained opportunity, what is Tyler O'Neill? If an opportunity presents itself, can Dylan Carlson, is he ready yet? And then you have the other guy, Lane Thomas, another guy who's spent some time in the minor leagues. Hey, look, what do we have in this kid? Can Harrison Bader, being handed the center field job, actually keep it? Right? So this narrative was, we're going to find out. I was excited to find out because I'm like, okay, I'm actually tired of Cardinals fans talking about the fucking minor leaguers who've never proven themselves. So, okay, come on up, prove yourselves or don't, and let's figure out what we're going to do in this goddamn outfield so we can move forward, right? And okay, so a couple of them I've at least one of them I know absolutely for sure I've made my mind up, and that is Tyler O'Neill. Okay, I like the way he got off. He started the season. I mean, he looked like he was laying off some things that he normally would whiff at. And I'm talking like the off-speed pitches, the things low and away that were just, almost guaranteed you're going to get him. Early in the year when they first started up, I'm like, oh, he's looking a little bit different. He's laying off some things he normally wouldn't. And of course, as we moved through, they had the layoff there, and then we came back. I watched the at-bat last week when he took a strike, a fastball, just right. It wasn't right down the middle, but it was clearly a strike. And, here he is. He's up there. He's guessing. Right. And that's what drives me nuts about these players. If they guess wrong, they don't know what to do. They freeze. If I'm looking for an off speed, I get a fastball. you got nothing from me. This bat is going to sit right here on my shoulder. And I'm just so tired of watching him do that. I'm so sick of it. Like, I don't know. I'm not saying it's easy because, look, I can't do it. That's why I'm sitting here talking to you at 10:15 Eastern time, because I wasn't good enough, or I couldn't manage this up here. And so, look, by me talking like this, I'm not saying that I could do it, but I've seen enough baseball. You and I have watched baseball for 30 plus years. We've seen a lot of it. Whatever happened to see the ball hit the ball, right? Like, whatever happened to that to just make contact? When did we start seeing a lot of young players, a lot of them, not all of them, but a lot of them, if they guess wrong, they don't do anything. I don't understand the philosophy anymore. It's lost on me. And if you look at overall league numbers and averages, you just kind of see that, well, strikeouts are up, walks are up. They're not scoring less runs. They're just scoring them differently. They're waiting on the big hit, the home run. They're hoping a couple guys get on in front. And it's just this swing porn is all it is. And so, man, I would love to see somebody throw up Tony Gwynn's launch angle and his exit velocity and just get, Tony Gwynn wouldn't get through a baseball equivalent to a combine these days. But he was a pretty shitty. He was just trash, wasn't he, Pete? I mean, he didn't even deserve to be a major leaguer, right?
Him, Ichiro Suzuki, and Ichiro, like we've seen when he muscled up, when he wanted to, he could hit home runs, but that wasn't his game. That's not what he was trying to do.
And Tony Gwynn could pop one every once in a while too, and he did plenty of them.
Yeah.
I'm just, I love this when you look at a player's ultimate production. You look at like Harrison Bader, who's batting sub 200, but then somebody out there on social media will throw a graph up and like, yeah, but he's been hot when they throw it here. Or, hey, in the last 3 games, he's done this. Or, you know what? I don't care what you throw at me. I look up and I see St. Louis left fielders. You look at almost all these statistical categories, except walks. They're actually halfway decent in terms of walk rate. But you start looking at everything else, left field, like 28th, 29th, 30, depending on what category you're looking at. You're like weighted runs created plus. You're looking at OPS. If you're looking at strikeout rates, you just see the Cardinals are at the bottom of the damn league in those 2 positions. And I don't care what the hell you guys throw at me. Look at that. Look at where they rank in these categories. They're just not good. And the fact that we're sitting here excited about Dexter Fowler coming back because he's our best outfielder, shouldn't that tell you all you need to hear? That's how well this experiment has gone.
A month ago, this would have been music to my ears because the Cubs
but
were
you're feeling the same
playing
thing.
Relatively well. They were struggling a little bit in the starting rotation, but they were playing well. They had a nice lead. And you're just singing my song just from a different songbook. Because the Cubs are seeing the exact same thing. They started out hot, and there were visions of 2016 repeating itself where they were going to get out, go ahead and run away and hide, and then they could rest up for the playoffs. And that's not happening, man. They're going to back in, and they're going to be lucky. They're probably going to get a division winner seed, so they're going to get to host the 3 games at home before they go into quarantine. Mm-hmm. But we talked about it before. I don't know that I foresee them going very far. I think it's going to be, a first round win and then out, because you don't get an offense untracked like that. This is not a case of you're resting guys and you're giving other guys more opportunities to get at bats. This is the whole damn thing is broken.
Oh yeah.
Even the guys who started out the season hot, Schwarber looked good early on. Happ looked phenomenal early on. And I can't think of a Cubs hitter that you would characterize as hot. Maybe Rizzo's turning it around. He had 2 home runs the previous 2 nights, but obviously he didn't do anything today. Nobody did. And that's been one of the things about the Cubs is that this year,
she must have said something to. She must have said something to her husband because Sam's not watching. Smitty, what's going on, man? It seems to me that like the Cubs are winning because they're getting blown out a lot. And they're winning the close ones, but that's only going to last so long, especially in the playoffs, because you're not going to get a lot of close games. Hey, the Cardinals moved up in the left field weighted runs created plus, though. They're 25th now.
Is that because Dylan Carlson hit a home run today?
It's funny. Center field did flourish there for a game because Harrison Bader swung it straight. He swung at fastballs instead of watching them, and then inevitably, succumbing to the off-speed pitch that will just skewer him into the ground. The Cardinals, 17th in weighted runs created. Oh, wait. No, I don't have the column highlighted. Hang on. Don't do a premature thing here. It gets better. Oh, they're 21st. So they're moving up the ranks, man.
Now, is that the entire outfield?
That's just center. Yeah, I picked center field.
Okay.
So where you want to know where your Cubs are at? This is a good number to look at because it does encompass a lot of things. The Cubs are actually 14th, so they're middle of the pack. So the Cubs have an average. Yeah. Average.
But they're middle
production.
of the pack based on how hot they started the season. Because of late, the only bat in the outfield that's working is, of course, Jason Hayward. Right? Like you and I, we're living in the past. We're celebrating
icky batting average,
Fowler and Hayward.
It's ridiculous, man.
It's
I know.
2015.
It is. Jim and I were talking about on Tuesday on over at Ruffled Feathers about what the hell is happening to us. I'm actually okay. Thank God Fowler's back. Like you told me I would feel that way in the off season. That man, that's our best outfielder. You know what? I'm glad he is having a decent year, and I'm glad he is because I'm pulling for him. I'm rooting for him. I want a lot of my own fellow Cardinals fans to eat a big shit sandwich because I think they should. Here's one we never get to look at in the National League because it really doesn't apply to us because we just don't have a large enough sample size. He's living the dream, bro. Hope y'all are doing good. Hope you're doing good too. It's good to see you guys on here tonight. So DH. What's the production for the DH? Because normally we don't get to look at that because it really doesn't apply.
Right.
So the Cardinals are actually middle of the pack, and Matt Carpenter's had a fair amount of at-bats there, but boy, that guy is just he's gone beyond just a shell of what he once was. I mean, he's been really bad. This is probably inflated a little bit by Brad Miller, has had a fair amount of cuts there as well. The Cubs, on the other hand, production from the DH isn't very good. They're 26th in the league at that position. I thought this was one that would work for them pretty well.
Well, no, because they've used that to have both of their catchers in the game. I mean, I would guess that the most frequent DH has been Victor Caratini. If I was just to guess.
Yeah. Here's just my guess because Willson Contreras wants to fight everything, right? Like he wants to dominate everything. I am shocked that guy hasn't purposely gotten coronavirus yet just so he could beat it. And he could stand on its molecular corpse after he's done.
Hey, speaking of Willson Contreras fighting everything, and I know this is going to tick off Cardinals fans.
Oh no, I know where you're going. Go ahead.
If you take a look at the pitch framing metrics this year and the defensive ratings for catchers, number 2 in pitch framing, Willson Contreras.
He's been working on it.
Number 1 in defensive runs saved for catchers, Willson Contreras. Who would have thought at the beginning of the year that Willson Contreras would arguably be the best defensive catcher in baseball this year? But he fought his issues with pitch framing. I mean, credit where due.
Well, no,
he worked on it.
Yeah, you always give you got to give credit, especially when you see numbers jump in one year because they've clearly worked on something. Now, so I'm looking at defensive WAR. On Fangraphs, and I'm gonna explain here in a second why I think somebody went in and broke Fangraphs. If you look at just defensive WAR on Fangraphs, you do have the Cardinals ranking at 8th. The Cubs ranked at 11. Now I know that Yadier had spent some time out, right? Because I think he was a COVID victim as well, and so he was out for some time. But I think Kisner had several starts in that time frame. Wieters had some too. But here's the thing about catchers. This is where I was going with this. I'm going to come back. But no, actually, I want to share something to you with it's staggering. Okay. I mean, this is staggering. As bad as my offense has been and as frustrating as it is to watch them, I'm going to pull up weighted runs created plus for all of baseball. This damn near made me fall off my chair. Okay. And somebody posted on Twitter later I saw it there, didn't believe it. I came in and looked at it on Fangraphs. I'm like, you got to be kidding me. You got to be bleeping kidding me. Okay. So the Cardinals for weighted runs created plus It's kind of like an OPS plus that you see on Baseball Reference. Those two numbers are really close to meaning the same thing. They're 19th in baseball in weighted runs created plus. You will not believe this when I tell you this. The Cubs are 24th. The Brewers are 25th. The Pirates are 29th. How in the bleep are the Cardinals ahead of the Cubs in that category? Even the Brewers. Now the Reds are, where the hell are the Reds at? Reds are 22nd. All of them are behind St. Louis. And I've been here bitching about their offensive production, which isn't good. How shitty is the National League Central? How terrible are they?
You know, that was actually something that came up because there were some people who were trying to make the argument against Trevor Bauer being in contention for the Cy Young. Well, because he's clearly cheating. But two, you know, how anemic
How's
are
he
the
cheating?
offenses?
I haven't heard this.
So you remember a couple of years ago, he said, well, hang on, I'll get to it.
Yeah.
But two, how anemic the offenses are in the NL Central. But then if you look at the NL Central, there's actually there's been a lot of good pitching in the Central. And when you're only facing those teams, it's a little hard, I think, to judge. Now, obviously the Dodgers offense and the Mets offense are ridiculous this year. But still, if you're facing Yu Darvish, Trevor Bauer, Kyle Hendricks, you know, you're facing all the what's his name? Corbin Burns, I think it is, the guy up in Milwaukee.
Yep.
You know, these guys who are all having, and then the rest of the Reds rotation, you're going to probably see some bad numbers from offenses. So it seems a little bit. I think it's a little bit of both. The offenses aren't great, but also I think that you're probably facing an inordinate amount of good pitching this year in the NL Central. As far as Trevor Bauer cheating, remember, what was it, 2 or 3 years ago? He was talking about, I think it was Verlander, and he commented on how Verlander had added 400 RPM of spin to all of his pitches. And he said, there's no way you can do that in 1 year. Well, unless you're using banned substances. And he went out and he proved it one night. He went out and for one inning, he was using something. He was using a grip enhancer. Well, his spin rate this year is up 400 RPM, just as he's going into a free agent year, and he's having arguably his best year ever. And he's not talking about it anymore.
Oh, yeah. Usually when you're guilty about something, you don't really want to bring it up, right?
That's right.
Yeah, so Sam asked a question. Ron, are we looking at the Cardinals 2021 lineup right now, or do they make a move? If a move,
great question.
It is a really good question. We've been talking about that, Dan, for a long time, I think, or at least thinking about it. Sam, I'm going to do an analogy here because that's my exit ramp when I can't think of anything clever to say. So it's like buying a house that you think has a lot of potential and it needs some fixing up. And then you buy it and you get a contractor in to do some renovation, and he tells you that you need a new foundation. You've got termite damage, and your roof needs repaired. So there's not one move that's going to fix the offense. There's not one move that's going to recover the deficit we have in so many positions. So I don't know where they go, man, because I don't really have an inventory on what's available. I don't know that even if a guy like, say, I know it's going to come up inevitably as Nolan Arenado comes up, I just don't know that there's got to be another team out there that's willing to cough up more than I think the Cardinals typically want to in deals like that. And he's not having a great year.
He's having a terrible year.
Even playing for the Rockies.
How you manage that trade?
Well, you could look at it this way. I guess if you're looking at it glass half full, maybe their asking price goes down if you're just willing to eat more of the money. So you're not giving up. It's going to have to
go way down.
Yeah.
Because you think about it, right? Like everything is going against them now because they have a superstar who's disgruntled and wants out, which drives down the price. Okay. Yep. He had a bad year this year, so that's going against it. He's now injured heading into the offseason, so you don't know what you're getting. And he's got an opt-out after 21.
I didn't say you got swept by the Pirates there, Danny Grapes. I was hoping you did, but Pete corrected me. Then it was, 3 out of 4 the Cubs dropped.
3 out of 4, that's right. It just felt like it because it was a 4-game series and they lost the last 3. So,
yeah.
Gentleman's sweep.
So, Sam, there's no one move that's going to do it. It's going to take a series of moves. I don't think – look, I'm not saying the Cardinals are going through a 100% rebuild. It's just not something they like to do. But I have to really think that internally that organization, the front office especially, because that's been the common denominator since 2012. You know, my co-host over there on Ruffled Feathers brings this up all the time. He's like, look at this roster from 2012 on. After the year Albert Pujols left, yes, they signed Beltran to come in for a couple of years and kind of help fill. He had a couple nice years as a Cardinal. You had Alan Craig, who played really well in 2013, like a ridiculous batting average with people in scoring position. He fell off the map, off the planet. But you look at every year, and I really kind of say from 2014 on, and that roster has deteriorated year over year over year, even with the additions of somebody like a Marcell Ozuna or a Matt Holliday. It's just there are too many just too many holes in the roster. This is not one of these you fix over here. They are not a team like the Red Sox that can just buy your way out of it. When you have the luxury tax space, they're not a team like the Yankees that are willing to take the hit for a year. They're not even. They don't even have the deep pockets that the Cubs might have when they arrived earlier than what everybody thought they would. They just don't. They don't have it. They're not going to do that. And so I think if this calls for, I don't even want to say a renovation, man, but an overhaul, it's going to be a 2 or 3 year process. I think. I do unfortunately believe that we'll probably see a lot of the same names on the roster and in the lineup next year. Hopefully they figure out what to do with look, I wish Tyler O'Neill the best, just like I wish Randall Grichuk the best when he left. I don't want to see him in the lineup anymore. I don't want to see Matt Carpenter in the lineup anymore. It's been 2 years. Look, from September to 2018 to September of 2020. He wouldn't have survived in other organizations. They would have already shipped him out. So this is unfortunately, I think we're stuck with a lot of what we see next year.
And once again, you could be talking as much about the Cubs because they're very much handcuffed.
Yeah.
All indications are that they are probably going to be pretty limited monetarily. It just got announced today that more front office people from the Cubs are losing their jobs. So they've already cut their development and scouting staff, and now they're cutting people out of the business office, which tells you that they're not expecting a boatload of fans to be joining them even in 21, which means they're not going to be making a splash in the free agent market. And based on performance and also contract length, they're not going to get much of anything if they dangle anybody on that roster, which means that I think that next year the Cubs are going to be doing the same thing. They're going to be rolling out the same roster that they've now rolled out for 2 years in a row, basically, and crossing their fingers that they get results. And I just don't see it.
Yeah, and I have a hard time believing it, that there's a lot of money teams are going to be throwing around in this offseason with an uncertainty of what's happening in 21. Look how long this pandemic has gone already. It'll be shocking for me to once again look, even on a TV screen, Pete, and see 40,000+ people packed into one venue. I just don't know that. Yeah. It's going to be a strange thing. I mean, if all states and cities and counties and everything are open for business, like 100%, like everything's normal, I think next year, with the exception of maybe the opening week, I think you're going to see a lot more nights where you've got some empty spots out there in the upper decks that you normally don't see. Yep. I think that's what's happening. And some of it's financially because some people have been out of work for a very long time that would normally be up there. And so I think there's going to be an economic impact just from people just not making, some at least not making the income they're used to, and others just being cautious.
And, you think about it, that's just going to play right into the hands of the Dodgers and the Yankees because they're insulated given the size of their television contracts. Mm-hmm. They can weather this much better than other teams. And so they're going to be able to get bargains that are going to make us,
which will make baseball even less interesting when you have 2 or 3 teams that have loaded up while everybody else was hurting. And here's a wild card this offseason, Pete, depending on what happens on this Mets sale. Because the Mets haven't been able to spend anything. Wilpon got fleeced by Bernie Madoff, right? And if that sale goes through, they get a new owner that can do it. Look, man, they may be, the Mets may be back as big spenders in a big way potentially. So that's something that'll be interesting. That might be the only interesting thing for you and I to watch in the offseason is if that sale goes through, what the hell will those guys do?
I saw a post today that Steve Cohen has already committed. If his bid goes through, he's bringing Sandy Alderson in as both the head of the baseball and business side.
I saw the
which
headline
indicates
on that.
That's going to be a complete overhaul.
Yeah.
So it'll be interesting. Well done, Brody Van Wagenen. Did you enjoy your 1 year as a GM?
Yeah, well, I don't think I think he can step right back into being an agent. He was clearly a little bit better at that. But I will say that you said it earlier, their offense has been pretty ridiculously good, which I didn't see coming really. I mean, I knew they were okay, but not like this.
No, you knew Pete Alonso was going to be
right.
something, but beyond that, yeah, it's been kind of crazy.
Yeah, the Mets
it's been hard to follow because
Mets and Braves
play.
Braves have been good. I didn't think the Braves are going to be as good as they were last year. As far as I thought, well, some of these guys are going to experience that sophomore-ish type of slump, but that hasn't been the case. So,
nope.
I think they're going to be tough, man. Yeah. That's a good matchup. If it gets deep into the playoffs, I think right now, I know we're not big on the predicting thing, especially when our teams we don't feel they're going to be in the mix at the end. I think that NLCS is going to be interesting, especially it's the Brave Dodgers. I think that'll be a really good matchup.
Yeah, I think that's ultimately where it's going to end up. Frustrating to think of that. There was the possibility that the Cubs and White Sox could have conceivably met in the playoffs this year.
Mm-hmm.
It's obviously not going to happen, but to think that if it did, it wouldn't happen here in Chicago, that it would happen in Texas.
All right, we got some comments.
Probably a good thing the Cubs are going to get knocked out relatively early.
I'm going to go through some comments here we got on Facebook. Sorry, I might miss some of these, but the Cardinals have plenty of money. They just haven't spent wisely. That part is true, Michael. It comes from Michael Palmer. I agree with that. We've been down. Here's the thing: we were looking at, gosh, the Dodgers. They just spend money, right? Like, yeah, you know what? But if you look at who they spend it on, they're generally pretty smart about who they spend it on. If you look at the big money, who it's going to, and who's coming off the books, you look and you see, like, yes, of course, Mookie Betts are going to be paying him a boatload, right? But you've got David Price who's coming off. You've got Justin Turner who's coming off, and you can go through up and down the list. You look at who they've committed to and who they're paying, and they're like, yeah, all those guys you could argue are kind of living up to their deals, which we know, Pete. If we go up and down the list of free agent deals that have been, or even extensions, and who's living up to them and who's not, like generally we can count on one hand the players that live up to their contracts, right? And then you look and you see a boatload of them that have been over, that aren't. And you look at the Dodgers and you're like, Jesus, man, these guys got something figured out, because just about everybody on there, you could form a case that all these guys are living up to their deals, when most of the times we know that doesn't happen. Like Mike Trout being the first one you look at and go, that guy earns his money, no doubt. Yep. Mookie Betts, you're going to say the same thing, and you really have to think hard and go up and down the baseball cards in your head about who's earning it and who isn't. Max Scherzer is another one you'd throw in there that's probably earned his salary, and Dodgers. I guess the point is the Dodgers are probably better at spending their money than most other teams, especially the Cardinals. They do spend money, Michael. You're absolutely right. They do have it. They've spent it poorly. Yeah, I won't go off on the Matt Carpenter extension, but out of everything that John Mozeliak's done, he signed Brett Cecil, but maybe he signed him for too long as a free agent, but that obviously it's been an awful contract. You go to the point in time where that deal was done, you go, okay, that could work out. He had a pretty good year in Toronto. He's a lefty, great bullpen piece. It's been an awful deal. The one that most people are upset about, if you think about it, it's really hamstrung them this last offseason and it hamstrung them this offseason. That is just the Matt Carpenter extension has been one of the worst impacts to them being able to do anything. The Fowler contract plays into that too. Again, I go back and look at the time when they signed Dexter Fowler. They didn't have a legit leadoff person. They didn't. They didn't have a lot of speed. And so that signing made sense at the time. Plus, it was a little bit of an FU gesture to the Cubs. Of course, that didn't work out as planned so much. But, the Matt Carpenter deal is one that's really hurt him. What's been the deal that's really hurt the Cubs, Pete, in your opinion? What's been that one signing that really prevented them from doing things you would have liked to see them do over the last couple winters?
I think you have to say that it's Hayward,
even
though he's improved from year to year. Because while Darvish had a lost year his first year, I think you can fairly argue, obviously this year and even last year after a rough start, he's provided value. And if he really has unlocked things, then you look for the future and you feel good about that signing. but I think it's the Hayward deal because it's taken so long for him to provide the kind of return that you had hoped for. From a leadership standpoint, from an intangible standpoint, apparently he's been great in the locker room, and he was just the addition that they wanted him to be. But long term, I think that it probably has hamstrung them. Actually, what's hamstrung them more is their inability to develop their own pitching, because they keep having to go out onto the market and they keep having to pay John Lester and Tyler Chatwood and Yu Darvish, like money that could have been spent to bolster other parts of the roster, and they were so reliant on the fact that the position players, the core, were all on their rookie contracts and were relatively affordable. Well, that time has passed. Yeah. And now that core is not only getting expensive, but they're not providing the kind of production that you would like to see for what it's costing them. And it's definitely going to hurt them. Over on YouTube, and this will be a quick one because we've only got a couple minutes left because I got to jump. But we were asked thoughts on David Ross as a manager. I'll tell you, I've been, for a rookie manager in the spotlight, especially given what an unusual year this has been, I've been fairly pleased with him. He's obviously got some growing pains. There have been a couple of games where I think he's been outmanaged, but all things considered, I give him credit. He's been a fairly quick study with the exception of some of his lineup decisions. I don't know if you've been watching, but just the way that the Cubs have struggled the last month, I think you could say, his refusal to drop Baez and Bryant, who both have looked lost at the plate, to drop them lower in the batting order baffles me. I get that Jason Hayward's comfortable in like the 5 or the 6 slot, but you can't keep sending those two guys up there and taking all those at bats.
Yeah, there's something
just doesn't work.
Something to be said for shaking it up every once in a while when you think you need it. And one of the things, Pete, that kind of fired me up a little bit over Twitter. I know we got to get off here soon, but even this is coming from Cardinals fans. It's not even coming from Cubs fans. Although Cubs probably roll in the joy of hearing this. There was a tweet. I'm not going to say his handle because I've had some pretty decent exchanges with him in the past, but it was the Cardinals' best available catcher isn't even on the roster, and he's talking about Andrew Kisner. Here's the thing. Go look at his numbers. The dude's had 69 at bats in baseball, right? I've got Yadier Molina, and by the way, this is a little surprising when you look at it. He's got a career batting average, I think, of like 281. It might have changed over the last few days since I've looked at it. It might be up or down a point or two. But I've got since 2004. I know what this guy is. 16 years later, I kind of know what I've got in him. I know he's 38. I know he's not what he used to be behind the plate as far as just reflexes and his arm strength. His speed on his throws down to first and second. I know he's never going to carry a team on offense. That's not who he should be. That's not who we've asked him to be, although he's made himself into a pretty damn good hitter and a good hitter that knows what to do in a situation. And what I mean by that is when you have a runner on first and second, nobody out, Yachty generally knows what to do with the bat. He knows to push he knows how to get the runners over. That's what he does. He gives himself up, and he's willing to do it. Those intangibles you were talking about earlier, Pete, that some people seem to not value if they don't show up on Fangraphs or Baseball Reference. Those things are real, and they happen. Look, I hope Andrew Kisner has a damn Hall of Fame career. Why wouldn't I? Yachty can't play forever. So I want Andrew Kisner to be good, but I'm not going to sit here and die on this hill that says I'm banking on this rookie. Hey, with 8 games, this happened when there was 8 games left in the year, that I'm going to sit here and declare a rookie with 69 at bats just because I like him, because I think minor leaguers are cool, because I always think they're going to come up and be better than what we have. That guy's our best available catcher. Get the hell out of here, man! With 8 games left,
especially when you're fighting for a playoff spot.
Yeah, this late in the year, I'm sorry, buddy, but I'm going with a known. Andrew Kisner at this point, I like what I've seen from him. I actually like his speed. He's actually pretty quick for a catcher. His defensive skills aren't what Yachty's were when he was young, when he was coming up. But Andrew Kisner's probably a little more capable with the bat, right? He will probably get probably get a little bit better production with the bat. That's not what we need Molina for. We need Yadier Molina's defensive leadership, his ability to call a game, his experience, his instincts. Like whatever he's lost in reflexes and speed, he makes up for it with just experience, and the game moves slower for that guy than it does a young guy. at this point in the year, you're batshit crazy to say, I want that rookie, that unproven rookie, by the way, to be there. And I want that veteran who's going to get a statue outside of Busch Stadium. This is not nostalgia talking. This is like reality talking. Like, you're nuts, Cardinals fans, young ones, you goddamn millennials who want these minor leaguers up all the time, and you just discarding everything that this guy has given to the team. Look, even as a Cub fan, Pete, his desire to be out there every day, to catch all of those innings, even to be feisty, even sometimes to a fault. Like, who do you want there? Really, at a time like this, at the end of the year, at the end of his contract, by the way, you're really going to sit here and declare that minor leaguer who's had a whopping 69 total major league at bats, you want that guy in there now so bad. That's where you're going to stand. And I don't fault fans for being excited about young people and their potential when they come up, right? Because I was excited as anybody to see Dylan Carlson. But come on. Like, let's not throw shade at what I view as a Hall of Famer and a rare opportunity to see a guy with his defensive caliber and his team leadership, and he's been the heart and soul of this team, him and Adam Wainwright have. Let's not do that at this point in the year. Let's not do that at this point in his career. What could be the end of his Cardinals career. I don't think it will be, but what could be. Why are we doing that now? Like, even take all that, take all the emotions out of it. Why the hell would you ever want an unproven in there so late in the game? Calling a pitching staff, like calling a game, like, come on. This is, and they're willing to argue that forever. And I'm like, okay, so let me get this straight. So if Andrew Knizner has the exact same amount of at-bats as Yadier Molina this year, he automatically has better numbers. Is that correct? Yes. The person said yes, absolutely. Okay. I've got 16 years of looking at what this guy's done, and you're talking about 69 at-bats, and you're already declaring, waving your finger, that guy needs to be in there right now.
And, Ron, I 100% agree with you because, you gave the example of Dylan Carlson, and part of the reason why Dylan Carlson was brought up and then sent down and brought back up again now is because the determination was made that he was providing a better option than what was currently starting games in the outfield. Yeah. And that's why Knizner is not playing and then was sent down, was because it was determined that as long as they were trying to win games, he was not a better option for the team than Yadier Molina was. If the Cardinals were carrying around the record that the Pirates have, and they had been eliminated, I can almost guarantee you would see Andrew Knizner in far more games, because the determination is we're not trying to win games. And now you're right. We do need to look for the future. But, you said Willson Contreras wants to fight everything. Yadier Molina will fight whoever doesn't put his name in the lineup, as long as there's an opportunity to qualify for the playoffs.
Yeah. And I acknowledge that it would suck being his backup, right? If you wanted to get out there and play, it would suck. Now, Matt Wieters seemed to have embraced that. Like, he's okay with it. He's at a point in his career where he's probably like, okay, well, I'm glad people are still interested in having me on their squad. Once in a while I can run into one, I can have a decent game, but he's not a guy that's going to start anymore. Now, if you wanted to argue that, okay, well, you only had 1 year, you only have a handful of games left with Matt Wieters, why not just make him a bench bat, a potential DH or something like that? Call Knizner up and have him be the backup. Look, if you wanted to argue that, I wouldn't even argue with you, right? If you thought, well, you know what, could you really just kind of DFA Wieters, because you can't send him down? He's not a guy with options, by the way. You have to DFA him, and it probably not a big loss. If you wanted to argue that, I'd probably agree with you. But given where we're at right now, to say he should be starting, I mean, Jesus, check your meds. That's it for me with baseball right now. I haven't. The Cardinals were up 3-1. I guess they got the Burns a little bit earlier in the game. At least they put one up on him when I was watching it. And by the way, so I'm wearing my St. Louis City, or my MLS shirt. I kind of dig the name. I like the name City. Kind of reminds me of Matt Adams, Big City. Maybe that's why they chose that.
Is that what it is? No. Their soccer team is a tribute to Matt Adams.
I think it is. I want it to be, actually.
Well, unless, Ron, you have anything else to add for tonight?
There's nothing really much on the front. You mentioned it before. It's a 40-year anniversary of The Empire Strikes Back. It's back out in theaters. I don't know what version they're showing in theaters, though. I'm assuming it's the special edition, the last one that you would think, right? As much as I would love to get out and actually watch that on a big screen, theaters aren't open yet in North Carolina. If you could catch it at a drive-in outdoor, those are open. But I trust me, when I knew it was a 40th anniversary and I saw it posted up that it was going to be in theaters, I did look, but none of the outdoor places are carrying it here. So that's kind of a bummer. Maybe Return of the Jedi 40th anniversary coming up in about 3 years if I'm still alive. I can catch that one. But yeah, so 40 years. And I was thinking about this earlier, Peter. I remember my parents taking me to that for the first time, and it was in 1980. It was only 5, not even 5 yet. And I remember we got to the movie late. Like the Wampa had already taken Luke out, and I think we came in at a point where he woke up. And so I caught it, but we were still trying to find a seat and walking, so I kind of missed the very beginning of that thing. So anyway, I don't know how whatever fired in my brain to make me remember that, but that was my very first memory of Empire Strikes Back. And I remember as a kid that wasn't my favorite because it was a darker one, right? It was more of a, the good guys escaped, but they didn't win. And when you're a kid, you want the good guys to win all the time, but they didn't. And this time, of course, as we get older, it's by far, I think it's most people either choose Empire Strikes Back or the original A New Hope as their favorite Star Wars movie. But Empire has always been, as I've been a teenager and adult, Empire has always been my absolute favorite, undisputed champion, never lost Star Wars flick.
Well, I tell you, it's my favorite, most definitely. And I have just as many fond memories of it. We drove in because at the time, the theaters obviously out in Sycamore weren't nearly as opulent as the ones in the suburbs. And the closest Dolby Digital theater to us was in Schaumburg at Woodfield Mall. And my dad happened to work in Rolling Meadows, so he was right there. And I remember driving in with my mom. And my dad had gone over, I guess, during his lunch and had gotten tickets for us and seeing The Empire Strikes Back on opening night. And I remember being so upset on the way home. Not crying upset like I had just seen the end of E.T.
Like you just watched a Cub game.
Saying, Darth Vader lied, right, Dad? There's no way he's Luke's dad. Like I refuse to believe it. Even with Luke calling out to them and them having the connection as Luke flew away on the Millennium Falcon, still just refused to accept that Darth Vader could possibly be Luke's father. So yeah, that's the memory I remember from 40 years ago.
We need a tour. We need a tour live show in St. Louis or Chicago next season. We've only done it.
We don't disagree.
Yeah, we don't disagree. We'd love to do that. We did one in Chicago. It wasn't a live thing. I think we tried to do a live thing, and that was a butchered job. I think we got the audio out on it, but yeah, Sam, we definitely would love to do one at some point in time in one of these locations. I think St. Louis is next up because we did Chicago last time. So Pete has not been to the new ballpark either.
No, he hasn't. In fact, we were planning on that, looking forward to that. So we'll definitely have to make it happen. Who knows? Maybe the boy will be old enough and we can throw him on the train. We'll make a weekend out of it.
There you go.
He can finally make a guest appearance.
All right, Pete, get us out of here.
Yeah, most definitely. When we're not live on Facebook, YouTube, and Periscope, you can find us anywhere and everywhere. Our website is teamarivalspodcast.com. You can follow us on Instagram and Facebook at Team Arrivals Podcast or on Twitter at Team Arrivals Pod. You can send us an email at the show at teamarivalspodcast.com. You can find Elliott at TOR_Elliott. And you can find Ron at
TOR_Ron75.
You won't find me on Twitter. Don't waste your time searching. If you are watching us live, don't forget you can catch us anywhere you listen to podcasts, on Apple Podcasts, or new this week, we're on Amazon Music Podcasts.
Oh, I was going to text you about that. You did it. Thank God.
I did it. Download the app and you can listen to us on Amazon. If you love the show, you know what you're supposed to do. Subscribe, unsubscribe, and resubscribe. Tell your friends. After you've done that, leave us a review by going to ratethispodcast.com/TOR. Follow the simple instructions. And don't forget, please, make it a great review. Ron.
Absolutely. All right. Well, we have I hope is an action-packed weekend, and we figure out one. I hope we don't have to have any kind of. I hope we don't have to play the doubleheader against Detroit on Monday. I hope everything's settled by the time we roll into Sunday, and we've got the playoff picture and the bracket all set. Hopefully we arrive there. Hopefully the Cardinals are in. Looks like the Cubs, unless they completely blow both tires, are surely gonna capture first place in the National League Central. Hopefully the Cardinals stay right where they're at, and a little help from whoever the hell's playing the Reds would be sure be a welcome thought. Who are you ending this weekend with? Was it Minnesota?
No, it's the White Sox.
The White Sox. That's right. I think if I'm not mistaken, I could be mistaken. Either the Brewers or the Reds have to face Minnesota, so they've got a battle there. Minnesota's pretty good. Cardinals, they just take care of business against the Brewers. Are off to what looks like a good start tonight. Of course, as soon as I probably walk out here and start watching it, they'll something will happen, and I'll want to probably get back behind a mic. But thank you everyone for it was fun seeing some of the familiar names out there on Facebook again. CJ, Sam Smitty, I think I saw Yaki on there earlier too, and everybody else who joined in and commented tonight. We, as much as we'd love to get to every question or every comment that's on there, sometimes me and Pete just get going, and the eyes don't look down at the device to see who's been talking to us. But we thank all of you for joining us. Plan on being here next week. We can talk a little playoff baseball, unbelievably, right? So we'll do that, and we'll probably I don't know if we'll get anything else in or not, unless there's some breaking news outside of baseball that interests us, because it sure as hell isn't basketball right now. The Bears are 2-0. We'll see. Maybe we'll 3-0. When's the last time they started off 3-0? Was it under Ditka era?
No, I'm sure it's
Lovey, under Lovey.
But hey, don't say basketball is not interesting, because the Bulls have made some moves, man. Their front office is getting some positive reviews. They hired Arturas Karnisovas away from Denver, and then he went and plucked Mark Eversley from Philadelphia, and then it was just announced the day before yesterday that they talked Billy Donovan into coming after he fled Oklahoma City. So all of a sudden, the Bulls seem to have some legitimacy. Now they just need to get the players.
Okay. We got everybody else. Now we just need some players.
That's right.
Live up to the reputations of the other guys. So it would be fun to be interested in basketball again. I'm very fair weather when it comes to that, and unless you've got a Jordan Pippen-ish combo there, which makes Bulls basketball interesting for me to watch again, I'll be pretty far off. But we'll see all of you again next week. We love you all so much. Until then, bye-bye, everyone.